Welcome to Minnesota Housing's 2018 Rental Housing Building Standards tutorial. This training module will show you how to access our website for more information regarding Minnesota Housing's building standards. It will also highlight a few changes to our rental housing design and construction standards for 2018, which will also be featured in our e-news. And this training module will provide contact information if you need architectural technical assistance. Our rental housing building standards are located on our website. To navigate to our Building Standards page, go to www.mnhousing.gov. Click Multifamily Rental Partners, which can be found on the right side of your screen. Once here, click the Apply for Funding tab and then click Building Standards, which is toward the end and right of the Apply for Funding ribbon. Once on the Building Standards webpage, click the 2018 Rental Housing Design and Construction Standards if you want to view the document. The 2018 Rental Housing Design and Construction Standards is broken down into 13 chapters. Our Architects and Contractors Guides can also be found here. And for reference, this webpage is where you can find almost anything you need to know about our building standards. One of the best resources for you to learn about recent changes to our building standards is through our e-news. Links can be found near the bottom of the Building Standards webpage. Those of you on our e-news distribution list will receive a copy of our 2018 e-news, which will be posted on our website 1 to 2 weeks after we publish the 2018 RFP. But here are a few highlights of recent changes. The first change pertains to a revision of our rental housing design and construction standards involving window fall protection. We recently learned building codes no longer require window fall protection on replacement windows. Minnesota Housing understands the importance of having window fall protection and therefore has modified its rental housing design and construction standards to require window fall protection on all replacement windows, as is required by building codes for new construction. The second change pertains to our sustainability standards, and more specifically to Enterprise Green Communities Criterion 2.1, Sensitive Site Protection. This criterion requires a 100-foot setback from wetlands, which has resulted in many waiver requests being submitted to Minnesota Housing. Since nearly all waiver requests for this criterion have been granted by Minnesota Housing, we have decided no longer to require a 100-foot setback from wetlands and will instead rely upon local units of government and watershed districts to regulate this issue. This change is clarified in the 2018 Minnesota Overlay. The third item pertains to our environmental standards and more specifically to radon testing. Previously, radon testing of existing buildings was only required if there were a HUD-insured loan or it were part of a federally required environmental review or assessment. Minnesota Housing has decided to no longer let radon testing of existing buildings be voluntary, but rather we will require testing in advance of all rehabilitation, unless specifically waived by Minnesota Housing. If initial measurement results are above the Minnesota Department of Health's action levels, then an approved radon mitigation system must be installed and testing performed again to ensure the mitigation system is working. If initial measurement results are below the Minnesota Department of Health's action levels, and work scope activity is expected to depressurize building and/or decrease fresh air ventilation, then post-rehabilitation radon testing must be conducted. If initial measurement results are below the Minnesota Department of Health's action levels, and work scope activity is not expected to depressurize building and/or decrease fresh air ventilation, then no post-rehabilitation radon testing is required. If you want more information regarding this training module, or have additional questions involving our building standards, I encourage you to contact one of Minnesota Housing staff architects listed on the slide. Thank you for taking the time to view this tutorial.